Hello and welcome to this video tutorial where we will build an application for drawing BPMN, Business Process Model and Notation Diagrams. Our application on load renders this diagram that you see now. You can edit the text on both nodes and links. We can clear the diagram and create new nodes through drag and drop. We can create container nodes and 3 different types of arrows or connectors. We can also save the diagram to the local storage and load it from there. This application uses MindFusion Diagram library for JavaScript. We start by downloading the library from its official page on MindFusion's website. After we unzip the archive, we copy 2 directories to the sample directory where we will build our sample, common and scripts. In scripts, you can see the 2 JS files used by the library, diagramming and common. In common, we have jQuery, which is helpful, but not required by the diagramming library. We create an empty HTML file, and in the head section, we add references to the jQuery files. Then, at the end of the page, right before the closing body tag, we add references to the 2 MindFusion JavaScript files that contain the library, diagramming and common. We save the file in the project folder as a web page called diagram. Then we add a div element that will hold both the diagram and the node list view with shapes to drag. We create another div, which will be used by the node list control. We make it 200 pixels wide. Then we add the div element for the diagram. It will be a big one. We also place it 200 pixels to the left because the node list is there. We give both divs IDs because we will refer to them in code. Then we add a reference to a new JavaScript file, which will hold the code for our application. We create a new file and add their mappings to all classes that we are going to use in our application. Then we declare 2 variables, diagram and node list. We then use the documentReady function to create the diagram control when all scripts are loaded. We use the abstraction layer class to create the diagram control, and we set some properties. In place edit of nodes, round links, a back grid. Now if we open the page, we should be able to see the diagram control. We can draw nodes, we can edit their text, and when we connect the nodes, the links go round the node rather than directly through it. We create the node list view control the same way we created the diagram. Now let's add some nodes to the node list view. They will render as icons that can be dragged and dropped. We create a transparent node for text. We will use it to render text at an arbitrary place at the diagram. Then we add a few predefined node shapes. How do we know which IDs they have? Well, you can check in the table of predefined shapes in the online help of the control. There you can see all predefined node shapes together with their IDs. As you can see, all BPMN shapes start with the prefix BPMN, and we will use this to initialize them. The last node to add is the container node. We rotate it to -90 degrees. By default, the container node has its caption at the top. In BPMN diagrams, we will use containers as lanes and the caption needs to be to the left. We can now drag and drop these shapes and initialize them on the diagram area. The text node allows us to render text next to nodes. The default behavior for nodes is to render text inside them. Let's add all available BPMN predefined shapes. The shapes collection of the shape class keeps all predefined node shapes. We cycle through them and add those whose ID starts with BPMN. Now if we refresh the page, we see that all BPMN nodes are available. A BPMN diagram uses different types of links, solid and dashed, to note the connection between states. By default, the diagram library uses straight, solid lines as connectors. We will add 2 more types and define them as buttons. When the user selects a style, all connectors will be drawn with this style. We have copied in the directory of the sample the images that represent the on and off state of the 3 types of connectors. Then we add another section to the web page, this time with 3 buttons that change their image on click. We will use the methods onSequence, onMessage, and onAssociation to handle the click events on the respective button. The properties that define the aspects of the look of a diagram link that interest us are link-style, base shape, head shape, and head brush. We declare global variables, where we will keep the appropriate values for these properties. Now, every time a link is created, we will style it using these properties and it will look according to the style that is currently selected. In the onSequence method, we set the dash style of the link to solid, we set its head shape to triangle, and base shape to null because sequence connectors have nothing at the base. Then we set the head shape to be dark gray and make sure the button now renders with the on image. We also set the respective off images as content to the other 2 buttons. We do the same in the other 2 event handlers. We set the respective values to the link appearance properties. The message connector has a circle at the start and is dashed. The association link is just a dashed line with no shapes on the ends. Now how do we transfer those style settings to the newly created diagram links? We need to handle the diagram link created event. We add the code that assigns the onLinkCreated method as a handler to the link created event. In the method, we assign the chosen dash style to the stroke dash style property of the newly created link. We get a reference to it from the event arguments of the method. We assign the other property values, and now let's refresh the page. If we create a link, it is by default from the sequence type. We can change to message or association just by clicking on the button. Now we will add the color chooser that allows the user to set the background of new nodes. We give it an ID. Then, in our code, behind File, we add a variable background color that stores the chosen color. We get the input element and attach the same event handler method to 2 of its events, change and input. This way, we will get the new color when the user selects it through the control or just types in the new value. In the update background method, we get the value of the color input element and assign it to the background color variable. Then we get the currently selected node of the diagram, if any, and change its backgrounds. Let's try that on the diagram. We create a shape, select it, and the new color is applied to it. New shapes, however, are still drawn with the default color. Let's change that. We handle the node created event that is raised when new nodes are created. In it, we get the newly created node that is available through the event args. We set its background to the selected color. Note that container nodes have their background white. The newly created color is assigned to their caption. Now, if we run the application and select a color, we can see that newly created nodes have this color as a background. It is time to create some nodes to show when the page loads. We do this in a method called onLoaded. There we create a container node, which we rotate. The coordinates of all newly created nodes are in diagram units. We create two shaped nodes with ellipse and decision form and add them to the container. Let's call the onLoaded method at the end of the document ready event handler. If we refresh the page, you will see those three nodes appear. Let's create the link between the nodes. It is an instance of diagram link, and we create it with the create diagram link method of diagram factory. Note that the diagram factory, which is available as a static class through the getFactory method, automatically adds the newly created diagram objects to the list with diagram items. As you can see, we can edit the diagram in real time. Using the methods we have created one by one, many more nodes and connections, and we have now this pretty BPMN diagram that loads with the page. It is a big one, and though you can edit it, you might also want to clear it and start from scratch. We add 3 new buttons to our UI, one to clear the diagram and the other 2 to save and load it. The event handlers of these methods are simple. The clear method calls the clear all method of the diagram, which clears all diagram items. The save and load event handlers use the JSON serialization capabilities of the diagram to get it as a string and save it in the local storage. Now let's test the new features. We save the diagram and then clear the working area. Then we create new nodes and load the diagram. Here it is. Let's create new nodes and save them. We add more nodes. Reload. Here is the saved diagram. If we refresh the page, the initial diagram appears. And that is all for this video tutorial. You can find the source code of the sample with all libraries and files used in a link in the video description. Thank you for watching, and thank you for your interest in MindFusion developer tools.